Welcome to another Baby Theater. Today we're going to be talking about the Monster Mash. We did the mash. You see, the Monster Mash started eons ago. The good old Monster Mansion. They also called it the Mansion of Madness. And then, later on, people just rolled with that. They're like, Mansion of Madness everywhere. But anyway, all the ghouls and zombies and vampires and everybody hip and cool. They all lived in the same mansion, and you see, they'd all get together, and they'd have a big monster mash. They did the mash. What would happen is they all lined up and they mashed. Now, here's the thing. Back in the day before that, you see, they used to live in Dracula's castle, and they actually called the same dance the Transylvania Twist, right? But you see, what happened was, Dracula got really big-headed. He was like, I invented the Transylvania Twist. I did it. It was all me. And everybody was kind of like, well, this is like a group effort, man. It's not like all about you, Dracula. And he's like, Frankenstein was like, which meant, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, Dracula. Don't make it all about you, buddy. And the zombies were like, oh, brains. And that meant that Dracula, you need to stop. You need to chill. You need to stay in your lane. And then, Elvira was like, stop, Dracula. Like, you need to stop. Even the Bride of Frankenstein was like, oh, don't do it. Stop talking about Transylvania Twist. Nobody cares. We're just dancing here. And then, next thing you know, they're like, dude, we can't be around Dracula, dude. Like, it's just not going to happen. So they all moved out. And they moved into the mansion. They actually didn't invite Dracula. So he got a little upset about it. And so, but he did show up unannounced all the time. Practically lived there. He practically lived there. And they'd be like, we did the mash. Or we did the monster mash. We did the mash. But he would be like, whatever happened to my Transylvania Twist? I don't understand. Why would we go back to that? Come back to my castle. We'll have to Transylvania Twist again. Everybody was like, Dracula, we told you. No. Stop talking about the Transylvania Twist, bro. But one year, they were going to have the Monster Mash. And it was like a big deal. But there were these vampire hunters. And they were coming after Dracula. And what ended up happening is they actually came to Dracula's castle. But of course he wasn't there. So they planted some explosives in his castle. And they blew it down. And they were thinking he was in there, in the coffin or whatever. And they just assumed he was dead. Well, Dracula got a big check from insurance on that. Because it was an unforeseeable event. And, some of the monsters, they were like, man, that's Dracula. Like Wolfman especially. Wolfman was like, you gotta take insurance lightly. Because he really thought Dracula had just done it as like an insurance scheme. So that he could just live in the mansion. The Mansion of Madness. So, then, the the Lizard Man was like, you know, Swamp Thing was there. And so anyway, so that was a close call, really. But Dracula wasn't there. It was no big deal. He got the insurance claim, and he did end up living in the mansion. So that's why everybody kind of was like, I mean, Wolfman really has it out for Dracula. He's like, oh, why would you do it, Dracula? You're the worst. And that's a really fact. I mean, that's a really fact. Look it up. Look it up. Or ask him yourself. I don't mind. Fact check me. And so, but yeah, so that after that whole insurance thing, the vampire hunters weren't done because they found out through the grapevine, the grapevine at the mansion, because obviously, like, the grapes there were like monsters too, and they were like, they had like the grape language, grapes of wrath. That's what they were called, and they would just. But these vampire hunters were like, they were studious, man. They were studious. They studied up on the grapes. They studied grapology. Sometimes it's also known as winemaking. But it's not like the wine you think. It's WHINE, because grapes like to wine. And they were like, the vampire hunters were like, oh, Dracula's still alive and he lives in the monster mansion. So, they got up, they got their crossbows together, they got their stakes sharpened, and they went in. And the first ones they saw was Lizard Man, of course. Lizard Man was like, they were like, not today, Lizard Man. And what they did was they threw an electrified net on him. It was scary. It was like, electrified nets? They ain't nothing to play with, man. And so, the electrified net really took him down. Lizard Man was out of it. Now, the one thing that they didn't plan for was actually Jason. Like, Jason came over and was like, because Jason was, he was just visiting, but Jason was like, huge machete. He just came back from space, like, long trip. The nanobites, made him really, really dangerous, you know what I'm saying? Got a burp. And, man, they really got taken by surprise. They couldn't even fight him. They just had to run. And Jason, he's just like, it was crazy. They just ended up running away, just buying their time, because they knew once Jason found them, it was over. But, it took him a while to get there. So, he was going to its way slowly, towards him. The next thing was Wolfman. And Wolfman was like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to kill Dracula? Go ahead. Woo. So they got by Werewolf real quick. Yeah, Wolfman. They got by the Wolfman real fast. They were like, oh, okay, he's on free reign. Oh. No problems. Now, the next one, though, Frankenstein, he was like, but he was like reading a poem book. Because, he doesn't want to hurt anybody. He never did. So they just kind of walked past. And then, the bride of Frankenstein, though, she was like, I'll hurt you. So she took out her knife out of her hair, threw it, got one of them, straight through the throat. dead. And then the next vampire hunter was like, ah, and he got her good though. You know what he did? He had this hairspray, but it was like industrial hairspray, and it was like sprayed it on her whole body. Bro, she was frozen. She was like, she couldn't move. That's how stiff it was. Woo! So she couldn't even get out of there. Now they went in, and Dracula was having a little nap. You know, he was in his coffin. But guess who was there, reading Dracula a bedtime story? Freddy Krueger. And see, Freddy Krueger. The problem is though that Freddy Krueger can only really attack when they're dreaming. But they were seeing him, so they had already fallen asleep. Because the thing about it was the siren was like right around the corner, so they actually fell asleep before they even got there. And this was just all in the dream realm. And so next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, Freddy Krueger, bro!" I mean, you can't really beat Freddy, so you just kind of like turned him into. Well, he turned one into a banjo. It was like playing his intestines. He played like Deliverance on it. And then the other vampire hunter wasn't even there somehow. But it was because before he even went in there, he knew about the siren. And so he actually had already put in earplugs. So the siren was like, go to sleep. And instead of going to sleep, he was like, chop, chop. And he like cut her down real quick. So even though, you know, the other vampire hunter was like, you know, played into a banjo, the last vampire hunter was heading right into the coffin room, you know. And so he finally got into the coffin room. And all of a sudden, he saw the coffin. It was right before him. And he saw two coffins there. One was a glass coffin. Again, had some kind of girl in there, like knocked out. Like, what are these people doing? All the time. You know? So first he went over to the girl. Tried to like wake her up. And she did. You know, because he had some smelling salts. That's all you need. You don't need to like make out with people who are asleep. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's non-consensual. It's messed up. So then she was a monster too. She was a vampire, just like Dracula. So she was like, "Give me that blood." You know? So as she was chomping in his neck, he shot her real quick with the crossbow, and she went, "Pah!" And she went right into the wall, went right through her heart. She's but he's already bleeding thoroughly. He's like, "I gotta do this. I'm the last one left." And he opened the coffin to try to get Dracula. Guess what? He wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. You know where he was? The thing about it, he was downstairs in the basement. He was making a YouTube video. You know what he was making? You called it the Transylvania Twist music video. Like, he's obsessed. He's obsessed. So that vampire hunter just died, bled out. And Dracula's free again, you know. Nobody can beat him. And he's going to keep going on about Transylvania Twist until people agree. You know, maybe the votes is going to come into his favor now that, you know, some people are taken out. You know, maybe next time you hear Monster Mash, you'll be like, "Over to the Transylvania Twist." You know, could be. Could be.